Good morning. Can you hear me okay? I'd like to welcome you all here this morning and those of you on Zoom. And before I start, I'm going to have Cameron play a video. It just kept coming to me, and finally I said, okay, that's what you want me to do, so okay. But as you watch, I want you to think that His love gets you through everything. No matter what situation, He is there to carry you through. So keep that in mind as you're watching this video. I kind of feel that everything I say now is kind of anticlimactic. Most of you know that I was a teacher for 30 years, and probably the main reason I decided to become a teacher was because my parents were both educators. They both started out as elementary teachers. They both became principals, and when my dad retired, he was the superintendent of Scioto County Schools. They were both very particular about grammar, spelling, and punctuation. And because of that, I'm probably the world's slowest at texting or sending emails. I will proofread something I've written over and over and over before finally hitting the send button. I'm sure you've seen examples of how punctuation can make a big difference in what something says or the meaning of it. For example, let's eat, Grandma. And my grandkids' favorite, let's eat, Grandma. And I recently saw this one. It's one of my favorites. I'm giving up eating chocolate for a month. Sorry. Bad punctuation. I'm giving up eating chocolate for a month. Yeah, I kind of like that. You're probably wondering what any of this has to do with today's message. When I'm scheduled to speak, I have a process that I usually follow to begin the preparation. First and foremost, I pray for guidance for the message. I then look at just the theme, and I let that kind of settle in my mind before I begin to look up scriptures that go along with it. As I've mentioned many times before, I love to walk in the woods. I use those times to pray, meditate, and look for inspiration for any service that I may be scheduled to plan or speak. This particular time, evidently, I didn't read the theme very carefully. I was walking through the woods, repeating, Jesus disrupts holy discussions. Jesus disrupts holy discussions. I could not imagine what on earth that meant. Why would Jesus want to interrupt a holy discussion? Well, when I got home and looked at the topic, I still wasn't reassured because today's topic is Jesus brings holy disruption. Wow. So then I read the scripture. I thought, okay, maybe that'll help. Wow. So let me read Luke chapter 12, verses 49 to 53. Jesus is talking to his disciples. I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it is completed. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there will be 5 in one family divided against each other, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. As you can see, that did not give me a whole lot of peace. I would like to tell you a story about a family this morning, a typical family, a family similar to many we see every day, a family with a father, a mother, and several children. They could be your family, they could be my family. This family sat around the dinner table one evening and a discussion was started. Sally, in high school, began the conversation by telling of a friend at school. Her friend had told her that Jesus was the Son of God and that everlasting life was free to all those who trust in him. Sally quoted her friend as saying, "Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life." Immediately, an argument started. Tom, the older brother, said, "I don't want any of that church stuff at supper." The father agreed. There was a fellow at work who was always trying to corner someone on religion. He did not want any of that nonsense in the house. Mother raised her voice, saying, "A little religion would do all of them a lot of good. The least they could do would be to get a Bible and check it out." She had a Bible that had been given to her as a child. She would help Sally look it up after supper. Little Bill, the baby of the family, suggested that they ought to go to church and ask the preacher. After supper, Mother, Sally, and little Bill gathered around the kitchen table with the Bible to look for some answers. After reading for a while, they decided they would go to church the following Sunday and talk with the pastor. The father and the older son left the supper table in a huff to watch the football game. The three did attend church the following Sunday. They did talk with the pastor and in time came to experience the love of Christ in their lives. They did find that Jesus was the way, the truth, and the life for them. These three became regular attendees in church. The other two, still watching TV. Jesus says in our scripture this morning, "Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there'll be 5 in one family divided against each other, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. I have to admit, I am not good with confrontation. I know there have been many times that I should have spoken up when someone was saying something that I knew to be wrong. My rationale at the time was that it was better to not rock the boat in order to keep the peace. I realize now that sometimes keeping silent can give people the impression that you agree with them. We need to have the courage and conviction to speak up about our beliefs and our faith. In verse 49, Jesus says, "I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled." I don't think Jesus was talking about a destructive fire. I hope he was talking about a fire in us, a fire that gives us the strength and courage to stand up to those who would try to diminish our faith, a fire to fuel our desire to serve others, a fire to spread light in a dark world, a fire of inner strength. Here is a story about inner strength. It is told by Lou Little, a former football coach at Columbia University. He had a guy on his team who did not play very well, but who had a spirit that lifted the morale of the entire team. Little was proud of the boy and marveled at how he and his father would walk arm in arm around campus after the games. The boy's father died unexpectedly, and after he returned from the funeral, he asked if he could play in Saturday's game. He said he wanted to play for his father. The coach thought he would let him start the first few minutes and then replace him with a regular player. But to the surprise of everyone, the boy played the entire game. He played 60 minutes of inspired football. After the game, the coach sought him out. "What got into you out there?" he asked. The boy replied, "Do you remember how my father and I used to go around arm in arm?" He didn't want people to know, but he was totally blind. This afternoon was the first time he ever saw me play football. The inner strength we receive from God is just like that. We know as we live, God is watching us. The fire that Jesus talked about gives us the will, the strength, and the inspiration to live for Him. Have you ever heard a phrase and wondered where it came from? Well, the other day, as I was on one of my walks, I came upon a deer. That's nothing unusual. I see them all the time. But we stood there staring at each other for a few seconds, and then I moved. Of course, the deer took off. And as she ran, she raised her tail. A light bulb went off in my mind, and I thought, oh, that's where that saying comes from when someone says, "Let's hightail it out of here." At least I think that's where it came from. Another phrase I often hear is "stay on your toes." For the most part, I think it means to stay focused or to be careful. I'm going to give you the theory of what it means to me. Try to picture walking along a wooded, hilly gravel trail. I'll give you a little help here. When I am going up or down a steep hill, I usually stay on my toes. I'm no longer a runner. That ship sailed a long time ago. But going up a hill, I call it trotting. The other day, I was heading up a real steep hill, and there was an older couple up at the top of it. An older couple, probably my age. But anyway, there was this couple at the top, and they turned around to see who was coming, because I probably sound like a steam engine heading up that hill. And when I got to the top, the guy looked at me. He goes, "Wow, I'm impressed." I told him I was like a semi-truck. If I didn't get my speed up, I'd never make it to the top. I usually trot going downhill too, but that's just gravity taking over. So back to staying on your toes. Wait a minute, I have my shoe. If you think about it, if you go flat-footed, you have this whole surface that's going to make contact with rocks, sticks, holes, roots, whatever's out there. But if you stay on your toes, only about 33% of that shoe is going to make contact with all those hazards. Now, true, I could still hit one on my toes and fall, but the likelihood is less likely. We need to live our lives on our toes. Some of our life, of course, is rooted here on earth, but the majority of our life should be lifted toward heavenly teachings. Then, when we stumble over the rocks and roots and stones of this life, it'll be easier to catch ourselves and to help each other up. I would like for you to meet a new friend of mine. I first met him in the middle of April. I've seen him 7 or 8 times since then. The first time I met him was quite by surprise, but the other times I was actively looking for him. I'd like for you to meet Chester. Chester of Chestnut Ridge Metro Park. He's a barred owl, and I think he's pretty handsome. When you walk on the same trail at approximately the same time every day, you tend to meet the same people. So several of the people I see on the trail call me the Owl Lady or the Owl Whisperer. It seems Chester only appears for me. However, I suspect it's because I look for him. So I was given the task of naming him unofficially. Park rangers don't know, or if they do, they don't care, I guess. Several weeks ago, I was coming out of church. I had my ringer off on my phone, and as I was walking across the parking lot, I flicked the ringer back on, and I heard ding from my text message. I looked, and I'd gotten a text from a lady that I occasionally see over there, and she was all excited. She goes, "I finally saw Chester." And her next comment was, "I never would have found him if you hadn't showed me where to look." I never would have found him if you hadn't showed me where to look. How many people do we meet have never been shown where to look for Jesus? Yes, we can find him in the Bible. Yes, we can find him at church. But what about those people who don't go to church or read the Bible? Jesus came to earth to show us the way to live. I'm not saying we don't need to go to church or read the Bible. I'm not saying that at all. That makes us stronger and brings us closer to God. What I'm saying is we need to live our lives so that people can see Jesus in us and through us. Jesus brings holy disruption, and I still say, wow. My prayer this morning is that you stay on your toes, lifting ourselves toward heaven and avoiding the rocks and holes of this world that can trip us up. That we let that fire that Jesus instills in us give us the courage and the motivation to stand up for what is right and be the example people need so they will know where to look for Jesus. And all will know he is the way, the truth, and the life.